taking its while, isn't it?
It is.
Hello. That's it. I think we're live.
We are live.
Hello, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Oh, you can't
Oh, that
see
was
that
pretty.
hand.
You can't just see your hand, Laura, there. That's
Yes,
it there.
you're in there.
Right. So, welcome to AAC After Dark, your occasional dose of UK reefing chat from Jaffa HQ. It's a special night tonight. So we have the amazing Than Thein in the room from Tidal Gardens,
Hello,
or Reefing Heaven, as I like to call it, talking about sea urchins and more. We also have a good friend of Than's and myself, the wonderful Laura Carlin from Eco Marines. And last but no means least, we have the amazing Norfolk Reefer I've just discovered isn't from Norfolk at all, he's from Essex. And of course, Paul Longhurst talking about the most important subject tonight, Love2Reef.
And mental health. Yes.
Mental health.
Absolutely.
And the fact that it's the 5 years of Love2Reef.
It is the 5th year. I can't believe how quick it's gone.
I know, it's amazing when
And
you
all-
think
yeah.
how quick you think, you know. Where are we going with this? So let's see who's in the chat, Paul, shall we?
Yeah, let's have a look. So, you're thanking everyone.
Oh.
So, we've got Techers. Can't wait this
Hiya
evening.
there.
Good evening to you. Hiya, Johnny boy. So,
Hi,
are
John.
you disappearing at 8 o'clock, John, as usual?
I think he needs
Probably,
to. He's babysitting.
yeah.
It's always on Thursdays, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Look forward to seeing you, John, at
Hiya.
Love2Reef.
Hi,
Reefy Reese. Good evening to you. And then we've got Charlie Hobbies.
Charlie's Hobbies. Hi, Charlie.
Hiya. UKM. Haven't spoken to this guy for ages. Good evening to
Hiya.
you. And then we've got Matt there.
Matt's it. Oh, Matt, he's there.
Hello.
Hello, Matt.
Yeah.
Hello, Matt.
And then we've got a few more. So Harry West. Hiya, Harry.
Hi, Harry.
Good to see you in the chat. We've got Sam. Hiya, Sam. Look forward to seeing you on the 20th. And also Woody. Hiya. Hey, Dean, how you doing? I tell you, most of these people in the chat are coming to Love2Reef. So thank you, everyone, for buying tickets. And then got Rama. Hiya, Rama. Good to see you. And then we got Harron's Reef as well. So some real regulars from kind of live streams in the past. We've got Mylot. Hiya.
Mylot.
And then we got the Spiritual Reefer.
Hiya,
I love
Harry.
that name. Hiya, Harry. And then we got the Better Half,
Oh, there
Mrs.
she
H. Good evening to you, Ange.
is. The governor.
And we have got Stephen Owen. Hi, Stephen. Thanks for joining us. And then we move on to Nikki.
Hi, Nikki.
Tree. And I think we're coming to end of it. Oh, if they keep coming. We've got Reef Keepers of Wales. Good evening to you. And then we got Acro Addict J. And that's it for now. So thank you all. Thanks for joining. Really appreciate that. So what's first on our list then, Paul?
Well, I thought first of all we'd touch on Than and what Than's been up to. Many of you might know that I've visited Than a couple of times now, actually. And of course, he's made his way over to the first ever sort of prelude to Love2Reef, which was Coral Freaks, when Laura introduced me to Than, and I think I said at the time,
Who's that?
yeah, who's that? And now we've become, well, at least I think we have become good friends. And I visited Than on a couple of occasions, and I have to say, you know, this will always be a lasting memory for me. That was probably one of the moments. I did a podcast there, I think, on the first visit, and then we had a little mess about and a party after that. But anyone who's ever lucky enough to be in the area, if Than's up to it, it's definitely a place worth visiting. Hopefully one day you're going to make it there, are you, Laura?
Fingers crossed.
You keep saying it. Are you going to get a passport?
I've got one.
Oh, you got a passport?
Yeah.
You got a passport now, Than, so there's no excuse as well. But originally,
There might be a couple of excuses.
Yeah. Like a coral farm to look after. Yeah.
Well,
Can I ask how Laura knows Than?
well, it's a long story, kind of, but I always wanted to do coral farming, and way back when Than was in his greenhouse, I still do look up to what he was doing, even in the greenhouse before the big building. So I contacted him and said, "Will you be my business mentor?" So that's how we first met, and for I don't know how long really at the start, but for a while he was mentoring me on how to convert my business from regular wholesale over to full-on farming. And then after that, it was kind of you're getting information from me and I'm getting information from you here, and then it just was friends after that.
Incredible.
I think everyone shares. I think it's fair to say that everyone shares information, like very much like hobbyists do. I think, you know, like with Than and his urchin thing, it was Jamie that inspired him to do this, and no doubt Than's inspired you and me to do things. And I know that when I talk to the boys in Germany, I help them with their fish and things. That I think is quite a good, just very much like a hobbyist. We are hobbyists after all.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so, but yeah.
So to put you on the spot, what was the kind of one or two things that Than has guided you from the
Well, I can
start that
tell
you
you,
still remember?
Everything I paid for mentoring is on YouTube. He gives it away for free. I don't know. I think maybe the main thing that I get from Than is if something's too difficult, it won't get done. So when I built my new place, my old place, I had different stacks of tanks and things were a bit higgledy-piggledy. And in the new place, it was all thought out a lot more in terms of, is everything on eye level? You know, is it easy to look after? Is it easy to maintain? Is it easy for me to walk past and see a problem? And that is 100% from Than.
And that does sound like one of his YouTube videos.
Yeah,
the ones I've
I'm
seen
sure it
about
is.
maybe in the farm, you used to have it on 2 levels in the greenhouse, and now I don't think you do. And about the convenience of having the walkways around and all those kind of things.
Yeah.
You're right. They're in the kind of YouTube videos for the last 5 years, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, this image actually should give you an idea of how well organised and how super clean it is, Matt, and all the rest of it. And you know, it's without blowing too much smoke, it's an absolute inspiration, without a doubt. Just being in the new build. I mean, I love the old building, the old greenhouse too, but the greenhouse reminds me more of what I've done compared to this, and this is just it's just first class. And I cannot, you know, stress the how can I put it, just the finish, the overall finish. I mean, I always try and put a lot of effort into my finish, the bits that I do from a retail perspective, and we have to remember that Than doesn't open to the public overall, do you, Than? I mean, that was wasn't that open day, was that the first time that that you'd open to the public, or had you done public visits before?
I think that might have been the only official time that we've been open to the public in that way. I think in the past we had public over, but it was like people had to purchase tickets and stuff. And this time we just did away with that. And we're always open to the public in the sense that we have people visit by appointment. But never just like you can just show up unannounced without you know, buying a ticket or something. So that was the first time.
I'll tell you what's really amazing about your place, I feel, Than, is how few staff you have. How many have you got?
So there's a total of 6 full-time, but that includes me. So it's myself and 5 employees.
Yeah, and it's enormous, to give you an idea, Paul. I mean,
I've seen the video, so I've followed it for years in terms of from the planning stage and through the winter and all through the other end. Do you think the amount of staff you got is a correlation with the efficiencies that you have with the working areas and everything else? So I know from what I've seen on videos that you try and make everything as effective and as simple as reasonably possible, and you invest
unreasonably.
Stuff. Yeah.
Or unreasonably. No, it's definitely like a strategic thing that I'm all about, because I think that a lot of times places want to throw labor at problems.
Yeah.
And they just try to brute force it with manpower. And there's a couple of issues that causes. I think that people really underestimate just the work dynamic of bringing different people together. Like, I don't expect people to like one another here. but it would be nice if people also didn't hate one another. And oftentimes, like when you just keep adding people, you get this really complex work environment just because of the number of personalities around. And I think I've kind of like found a group that can just work with each other with relatively few like head-butting sessions.
Are amazing, Than. I can't remember. I feel really bad because I've spent quite a few times I've spent a bit of time with your staff on the floor, and they're amazing. What's the name of the two young men that I often interact with there? I see them all the time there. I think he's one of your main choral guys.
Most likely Ben and Luke.
Yes, the
are
Ben
the
and
two
Luke.
most likely to talk.
Yeah, and they're also absolute avid hobbyists and go to shows, and they're really into it as well, aren't they? They're not just workers, are they? They're yeah. That's the one.
Ben does not.
All right. Yeah.
But Ben is like the head manager here, basically. So he does not want an aquarium anymore. He used to have like 30 aquariums in an apartment, I think, back in the day. He's had 0 aquariums for a very long time. And yeah, he runs like day-to-day operations here to a large degree.
So do they have specialisms, or are they sort of mucking and they all do everything, or do they have certain areas that's their area?
They have certain areas, however, there's overlap. So if somebody is out sick that day, nobody is scrambling, not knowing how to do stuff. Also, just the way that the facility is designed, like as much as possible, stuff is labeled to the extent that somebody that's never seen like anything here can kind of figure it out. I mean, if they've been around reef aquariums enough, you can start to like just read what stuff is and figure out like the different ways that all the different pieces of equipment interact and stuff. And just like, when was the last time the UV bulbs were changed? Like, it's literally written on the thing, you know, like everything is like super hyper labeled, which kind of goes back to the whole like the fewer number of employees. It's just because like the facility itself wants to maintain itself.
Amazing.
Yeah.
You do have one person, I know Matt, answering Matt's question a bit, you do have someone that specifically just takes photographs all the time, don't you?
Yes. Now, so Becca, she's like 10 feet away to my right there. But so she does, and she's been doing this now for at least 6 years, like pretty much all the photos, all the videos. Having said that, before Becca did that, Ben, head manager, did all of that. And previous to Ben doing all of that, I did all of that. So if for some reason Becca had to leave for a week on vacation or something, there are like half the staff can do that function. So it's not like a completely lost skill set where we can't do any what you see is what you get corals for a week. Like that does not happen here.
It's a long time. So I remember, sorry, go on, Matt, you go.
I was just saying you got redundancy for redundancy just in case.
Yeah. So at any given time, like half the staff should be able to pick up the slack if one person needs to go away for some reason.
What I was going to say, I remember when Becca Fern joined and she started doing her videos, I didn't realize that was 6 years ago. And it just shows you how long the facility's been open.
Yeah. And the only reason I remember that is because she started, as soon as she started, COVID started.
Yeah, 6 years. Yeah. From the point of planning that site to when, I know you say in your videos it's never really finished, it's constantly evolving. How long did it actually take? I suppose to that point where it was finished, the first phase, and I know you're tweaking and you're kind of evolving. How long did that take from that stage? It feels like years and years.
Probably 3 to 4 years. Yeah, probably about 3 years to make it pretty functional. 4 years to getting it to where it's like 90% of the way there. And the last 3 years have been me tweaking that last 10%, I would say. So a lot of that infrastructure and foundational work took about 3 years.
And how different did it turn out to what you originally planned? Did it really change significantly? Because I imagine you had it in your head, you had the drawings, you say this is what we're going to do, blah blah blah. Did it look a very different animal at the end to when you started?
Yes. It turned out way better than my wildest expectations. I was just telling somebody the other day, because I have actually had dreams about one day, because this facility is located in my backyard.
Yeah.
And I had dreams of one day being able to like break ground on a completely new building and have it 2 floors and do all these different things in it. And wildest dreams, right? The reality of this place is substantially better than those wildest dreams. It's turned out so well.
One of my favourite things at Than's, by the way, and he laughs when I say this, is he's got an infestation of prairie dogs. But they're not prairie dogs, are they? What are they?
They are groundhogs.
Yeah, groundhogs, and they burrow everywhere. If you go out to around his garden area, you can find these massive mounds, and we're talking holes as big as this that they burrow underneath where he's got some old outbuildings, and it's filled with wildlife. Your back garden, turkey vultures in the sky, and Harris hawks, and that's the other thing you don't get, where you don't realise just they're outside of Than's. Well, I was standing there, and I couldn't believe it, because I was out there with, I think it was March and Steph or whatever, Yorkshire Reef out there, and we're listening, and the noise at night time when you stand outside. If you've got tree frogs there, haven't you, Than? I didn't realise that you even have there's a type of tree frog in your area.
There are, yes. So Ohio is a lot more kind of wet and swampy than people think. Like people always are asking, like, is it humid? And I'm like, actually, it's closer to Florida humidity than any other place. It's very, very wet here.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Just even although Tidal Gardens is amazing itself, just for a little walk around in the area, the ground,
just a location.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's got probably the best.
I've never heard someone big up Ohio so much.
No, I loved it. That's what I'm saying. Everyone, like, I went and visited actually March's brother, who's a doctor that lives in quite a poor area of Akron, I believe. Because we were standing out the front when there was all sorts of like gunshot noises and police cars shooting about. So it's not all roses for certain, but where Than is, more of the countryside bit, it is rather lovely. I thought it was really quite nice. So Than, the other thing we're going to talk about tonight is your latest project. So after a visit to the UK, although I found out that you'd done something previous, I'll touch on it in a minute. After a visit and meeting Jamie Craggs, you left here one time with going to go and do sea urchins. And it was only the other day that I found out that in a previous life that you'd already played around with sea urchins. Is that right?
Okay, so I met Jamie in 2019. So that was the first Coral Freaks show, I believe. Met him there. And that was when he was mentioning how he was growing so many tuxedo urchins that he didn't know what to do with them. And this was like before we really got flowing into the full scale of the new building. But in a coral farm, there's always the need to have like a good good herbivores. So we've always kind of struggled like keeping a good like inventory of these herbivores. And for us, like the tuxedo urchin has worked out the best, and it's also one of the most challenging for us to get in. Like the just ordering them wholesale here is really hit or miss. So when he was talking about basically having an infinite supply of urchins, I immediately wanted to do that. Little did I know that it's a tremendous amount of work. It's a tremendous investment that I've had to make up to this point in both time, facilities, and expertise to get to where I've gotten. We can talk about that in a sec. But way back in college, I was in one of my biology labs, and we had to do like a sea urchin spawning just to track the early development of sea urchins. Is it just part of like the academic activities there? And so that was my very, very first time. But like, unfortunately, those sea urchin larvae have no shot at success. I mean, they were just basically in a jar with like an air stone. So those are just for educational purposes. But to actually go from that step all the way to trying to get settled baby urchins that are eating, that's an obstacle, which is hilarious because like the people that have done it successfully all talk about how easy it is. And it's like, but it's coming from the perspective of people that come from like scientific or laboratory backgrounds with staff and interns and students and stuff. And to do all of that like yourself for the first time, it is not easy. There's a lot of stuff that could go wrong potentially. But I think I just got lucky this first time around, and I have settled urchins now downstairs.
Amazing. Yeah. So obviously, so you've specified on the tuxedo urchin, which is a big seller, I know, for Laura and for me. That's and there's a massive consumption of tuxedo urchins. There's probably not many a hobbyist on the planet that doesn't at some stage introduce a tuxedo urchin. And Matt, have you got any in that tank up there?
Got two, and I love them. This is workhorses.
Yeah, they are certainly an asset to every reef aquarium. And we were only comparing notes, Laura and I and Than earlier, and saying about that in terms of despite America being in a very good position with a large number of importers, that really the quality of some of the animals you receive are nowhere near, I believe, the standard that we seem to receive them in the UK or in Europe. And I've got no idea why there's good and bad suppliers all around the world, and you learn which ones are good. But for you, Than, this is really born out of a necessity, isn't it? Because the losses that you were receiving is phenomenal. I mean, Laura and I, it's like we would never be able to tolerate the amount of losses that you were telling us about. So I don't know whether that's something to do with transfer times or what have you, but we're generally seeing a tuxedo urchin leaving its leaving its country of origin, say the Philippines, on a Monday here on a Tuesday, and we're acclimating them, and there are usually very few losses associated. I think that's fair to say, isn't it? But for you, Than, it was born out of an absolute necessity, wasn't it? Because how many gallons? We'll say you're the one of the most European Americans I know. Do you know what it is in litres, your farm, or is it only gallons?
I don't even know what it is in gallons, to be perfectly honest.
Right, well, it must be. I mean, we must be looking at what, 20,000 gallons?
I would guess that I am somewhere between 12 and 15,000 gallons.
Yeah,
that's a 3,000 gallon buffer, but we're constantly changing systems and things like that. So we're in that ballpark, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, some of them, those big, so those tables, as you walk through the door on the new build on the right hand side, how many? Do you know how much one of those is? There, what are they? They're about 8 or 9 feet long by about 4 by
10. So they would be close to a little over 3 meters long.
Yeah.
And so they're supposed to be about 500 gallons a piece.
Yes, so that would be 4 times. Come on, Paul, you're the maths man. What's that? 2,000 litres. So they're at least 2,000, 2,500 litres. Then at least each one of those tables. So of course, when you have that amount of land mass, I mean, how many urchins do you have in service at Eco Marines?
In service, none.
None at all. What's that? You've got other animals doing the job, or
I've got so much cleanup crew that I don't really need them.
Oh, because you're selling a lot of cleanup crew.
My stock is there to not only be sold but to clean.
Yeah. Okay, so you have them in all the tanks, and then you just take them out to sell, and you replenish. So it becomes a workhorse as well as something that you sell.
I suppose that's sort of true of us on the shop floor, but even in here in the room that we're in now, I would guess that I may have at least 5 urchins per 500 litres, maybe, or to 700 litres or something like that. So it's still a substantial number for us that are out working and fish as well. But I suppose here, where you're wholesaling cleanup crew, you're bringing in more than you need, and then just selling off what you.
I do only keep the cleanup crew in certain systems. In some of the farming systems, I don't really use them because the big ones are a pain.
Yeah,
because they pick things up.
So sorry. So I want to know how many a hobbyist should have. So I've got one in I suppose the display's about 500 litres, so it's 5 by 2 by 2. I'm always scared to put more in because I don't want them to starve.
More.
There is a problem as well.
So kind of where does it get to in terms of should I have more than one?
If you want to. I mean, you've got to go by the algae that you've got in your tank, really, because every tank's going to be different.
Yeah, true. So it's not a clean. It's in its first 12 months.
Yeah.
So I've got.
You'll be able to see
and
on the
cyano
glass
and the stuff
if
like
there's
that.
extra food on the glass. If there's extra food on the rocks, you'll see it.
It's funny because I know, Than, you're really anti-snail, aren't you?
Yeah, but only because like logistically here they can be problematic. So on intake, some of them are not in the best of health. So there's always the risk, especially like trochus snails. It's really, really, really hard to get trochus snails in and to have them survive. Like I think the last several times that we've ordered trochus snails, 95% losses or something. And this is over years and years. I mean, it's like there's a lot of like data that we have on bad shipments of trochuses, to the point where I'll ask somebody else that's dealing with wholesalers, go ahead and bring them in. I'll pay I'll pay retail practically, but have them go through your intake. Sure enough, they're having 95% losses. And also, I'll kind of go through my list of my issues with different types of snails. Oftentimes, the trochus snails come with this red, stringy turf algae.
Yeah, turf algae, and I've seen that. Yeah,
absolutely not. Cannot deal with that. Right. So we can't accept any of those snails of the 5% that are alive. With Astrea snails do show up alive, but they show up with all manner of pests. So, and these are pests that I can't really deal with because if I try to deal with the pests, it also kills the snail. So they will come with these little red flatworms that we call planaria. They're not planaria.
Yeah, another one from it. Yeah.
Yeah. So our tanks, generally speaking, are pretty good at not having that particular flatworm. And as soon as we get a shipment of these snails, all the glass is covered in planaria. You can't really dip those snails because you'll kill the snail. They also come with pyramid snails, those little tiny cone-shaped guys. Very friendly. They come
and
with
they'll eat all the snails and eat clams, don't they? Those pyramid snails, don't they? Yeah.
You can't have clams, can't have scallops. Then sometimes you have these gigantic flatworms that are called polyclad flatworms or leopard polyclad flatworms, and those are snail predators. And they're so big that they will look like a snail in the shell. And once you get those in your system, you will just start progressively losing snails over time. And then one day you will flip over a tile and you will see like a 4-inch long flatworm.
Yeah, I've used tiles to trap them, funny enough, before. Yeah.
They love the underside of tiles. And they lay thousands of eggs. And they just have a way of just hanging out and eating snails. So we kind of had to completely decouple our herbivore activities away from snails entirely. We still have some snails here and there, but for herbivores, we really rely a lot on fish and now urchins.
Well, talking about fish, what would you say is the most important? Because I find with fish, I change my fish in my coral farm every now and then because, for example, wrasse become lazy. That once they know the hand that feeds, they rarely do much else than they can. Once you've had them a few years, 5 or 6 years, or something like that, they rarely do more than just hang around for the next food parcel to arrive. Yeah. And I find that juvenile wrasse are far more effective at controlling lots of problems and pests and stuff like that. But what would you say in terms of herbivores? What would you say is probably your most efficient herbivore? I'm assuming it will be a tang, but
It's a fox face, I think.
Yeah.
It's-
Yeah, fox face. But don't you find they'll end up nibbling your corals here and there when they get a bit more mature?
Sure, yes, and this is where I think that you guys are in a much better position, because you guys are able to directly import and bring in healthier animals and get them through your processes better than I'm able to do that here. Because like here we just bring fish in and we just keep them until they're old. And the problem with that is that fish, as you just mentioned, as they get old, they kind of like suck. So like tangs get incredibly violent towards one another. So I have to like stock my system so lightly, knowing that eventually they're going to start like knifing each other up. Fox faces will, I mean, even tangs to some degree will start to nibble on corals after a while.
Yeah.
Similar situation might be with copper bands, which I like a lot. They'll start to like nibble on corals occasionally. But yeah, there's certain tanks that we can't keep certain large polyp stonies in because like a tang likes to eat them.
Yeah,
Like,
I've seen this with Anchopteris species, particularly like powder blues and things, just literally taking a bite out of a goniopora and then spitting the polyp out and swimming on. Like, it, you know, I know you've got a cracking Achilles tang there. Is he still doing well? Or is he a pain?
Yeah.
He's still there, is he?
They're fine because in that particular tank, which is 600 gallons, we only have, I think, 4 tangs. Like it's not many.
Yeah. What about you, Laura? What would you say is your number one herbivore to keep your farm clean then? Is it like Dulcimeri you've never sold me?
No, I don't know. It's different in each system because each system has like its own quirks, algae-wise.
Yeah.
So I have got in some of them, I've got fox faces, but I'd never keep soft corals or zoas in there because they'd be dinner.
Yeah.
Other systems, really, I don't really use that. I don't use that many in some of my farming systems. And in the import system, that's where the snails go. Yeah, it's kind of mixed. I've got a Desjardins tang that I love, who will eat literally anything. So if I've got a pain coral or something, I'll throw it in there with her. But
Nassos, I think, are pretty good if you've got the space for them for controlling ova and species like that. I find that's pretty good. And I've been told many times that the blue spot Nassos and things, but you've got to have a big systems for those to be
you
efficient.
can't beat emerald crabs for that kind of
stuff.
stuff.
Emerald crabs are probably good if they don't kill each other and not too big.
Well, I've got 10-foot tanks, so I don't have that.
Yeah, true. Yeah. But
So coming back to this thing around fish from a US point of view, and then you've got cleanup crew from US and Europe, and it feels like in the US it's harder to either get the quality, or is it the shipping, is it the geography,
I don't know,
is it the supplier, because you've got a really yin and yang kind of
I think
different views on those things coming in.
From what I've seen, the coral diversity is better in the US generally. You know, there's a lot more scope for aquaculture because they have a very much lower energy cost than we could ever possibly dream of. Their country generally regards aquaculture, it certainly did, regards aquaculture as a bona fide actual industry, whereas over here we're sort of just some sort of quirky little business as such. But over there they get proper aquaculture permits as such, and you know they have they're encouraged by having low fuel costs. And you know, I know that Chris Meckley's electricity, for example, 7 cents a unit. I mean, that's why he can go on about metal halides.
Yours is dirt cheap as well, isn't it?
You know,
it's something I regularly.
It is in the ballpark. However, it is going up, but it used to be like
find a tiny violin. Just give me 1 second.
It'll be a matter of time, I think, before we're spending like a decent amount of energy. But right now, it's still like globally cheap, I would say. Yeah,
I think with the fish, particularly, one thing I notice over is not only is the quality much lower, it's also they're much more expensive.
I've seen that from when Live Aquaria was around. When you looked at the price of the fish on there compared to what I get from yourself, you go, how much for that?
Yeah, I think that was
fish?
like when I was with Steph and we did that talk at Reef Palooza. I think a lot of it is, if you look at the way the world map is, we are perfectly positioned for the Indian Ocean and for the Red Sea, and we're Indo-Pacific. Yeah, the only area we suffer on fish-wise really is the Pacific.
When they used to come in for Hawaii,
but once Hawaii was lost, then that's a little problem for us. But generally, I have no idea why. You would imagine. I know you've got who's the fantastic guy fan you had on the podcast who really cares about his fish, Elliot. What's his name? Is it Elliot?
Elliot.
Yeah, he was brilliant. I mean, I know he's really trying to bring a different type of quality to the US for fish, but you pay for his labour essentially rather than his fish as such. So there are people doing a good job over there.
I saw some of the videos. I don't think it was on Family. He was talking about copper bands and just really fish that really hard to feed. The work he would go through and take to do that. You pay a premium for that. But
maybe it's just the long distances that these animals are travelling versus us, that once they've landed there isn't too many, they haven't got to travel hours and hours and hours from source.
Just to throw a spanner in the works is the fact that the industry over there is so much bigger. The companies are having to deal with such bigger quantities of volume that stuff's moved over a lot quicker.
Maybe.
Whereas I've got the luxury of working with a supplier and saying, this is what I want, can you go and collect it? And then that shipment is all for me, comes over to me and has rested until it's all ready.
True.
And it's healthy.
So it's the churn, and therefore the quality goes a little bit because you're working on spinning the wheels.
I think that is it, because I remember when I was talking to RVS Tom, whatever, 150 boxes alone from RVS in the Philippines will arrive in Los Angeles every week.
Yeah.
Whereas we might bring in 10, 15, 20 boxes.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a little bit more. That's the reason why. So inevitably, Than, that was the drive you were tired, totally cheesed off with the idea of buying sea urchins, watching them all die, snails you're not keen on. And there's only so many fish that you can find that are healthy enough to stay alive in a period in terms of herbivores. And of course, I suppose that essentially what we've meeting Jamie in 2019 and then the secondary visit that followed, that was what pushed you ultimately to do it, was it?
Yeah, it was. And looking back at it now as to like the investment that I've put in so far, just thinking about the money side of things, we went and I spent, I think I spent about as much money as you can humanly spend on this operation.
I know you did.
Which is classically Than.
I can absolutely guarantee, Than, no one has ever spent that money.
I'm very good at this. I'm very, very good at this. And I have a lot of practice. But I think that if I'm able to get 1,000 urchins from this, just for use here, like not even selling a single one, it would pay for all of it. Just that first batch, it would pay for absolutely everything. It'll pay for the setup of all the phytoplankton stuff. It'll pay for like even like down to like the infrastructure to sell the phytoplankton, which I wasn't planning on selling originally. Like we have all the like the packaging and all of that stuff included in this
Can we talk about the label machine?
Yeah, I mean we've spent probably like $5,000, $6,000 on just like labeling. We haven't sold a single one yet.
They're lovely labels though.
Okay, so I will sprinkle this little point because I know you want to talk about mental health later. But a lot of times, like the staff here, they really appreciate some routine, whereas I am really all about pushing the envelope on projects. And so I do get like a lot of pushback whenever I have ideas on doing stuff differently and trying to do stuff better in the future. And the labeling thing is a perfect example of that. So we have this label printer. It's a very, very fancy professional label maker just to put on the bottles of phytoplankton. Now, I immediately, before we've sold a single one, because we haven't sold a single one yet, I wanted to get a automatic applicator to put the label onto the bottle. Okay. So Ben, head manager Ben, said, do not spend that money because it's like $900 or something like that, just for like the manual one. Okay? He's like, do not spend that money. And he's like, I will hand label these. I could do 100 an hour. It took him 2 bottles before he realized that was not happening.
Getting them straight, getting them slightly off skew. Yeah, that's never going to work for title cards. Yeah, peeling back the thingies. Yeah.
So this is a bad job, and so my goal with a lot of these projects is to make everything as easy as humanly possible before we really advance, because it's very easy to like go down these different rabbit holes and end up just making more work for absolutely nothing. And so I think that like one of the things that I always try to do here is if I have just a little bit of success with something, I'll immediately start to like re-engineer it to try to make it better. So we're finally at the point where I'm like very confident with our phytoplankton setup. A little bit less confident on the urchin thing, but I'm going to be having a meeting with somebody in 2 days to try to like custom fabricate stuff to do that aspect better, things like that.
Yeah. So do you see a time where it is on your website for urchins and phytoplankton, and it's seen as a product, no different to say the corals, and you kind of basically I suppose it's a factory production line, isn't it? In effect, of what you want to do.
So phytoplankton should be up and running fairly soon here, within like a couple of weeks, I'm imagining. We just finalized a design for one label yesterday. And the actual production of the phytoplanktton, I'm more or less okay with. We're going to have like 2 phytoplanktons for sure. The third one is really goofy. Like we started that culture and it was contaminated. Like it came out of retail packaging, contaminated. So it's the one on the right there. That's supposed to be Catastrophe on the bottom right.
And what are you growing, Than? What other types are you growing? So
bottom left there is Rhodomonas. The top shelf there, that's kind of like that yellowish color, is T. isochrysis. So these are actually very complementary. So T. isochrysis, the top shelf there, is kind of like the main building block energy source for a lot of different larvae, whether it be like zooplankton or even fish or whatever. Like that is kind of like a gold standard type phytoplankton, very high in a specific fatty acid called docosahexaenoic acid or something, DHA. Very important fatty acid. Bottom left is Rhodomonas. And I was told by one of the guys at Biota, he said, if you want to really try to do this better, you should try to grow Rhodomonas also. You'll get a lot better survivability. He was definitely right. When you feed both of those two together, you get not that I've done this before, but I think that like our first initial attempt, we had like tens of thousands of larvae. And I think the survivability of just that larval stage had a lot to do with the fact that we are feeding these different phytoplanktons. And lastly, the one on the bottom right is Catastrophe, and that's actually a diatom. And the unique thing about the diatom there is that it is really good for another fatty acid called EPA, eicosapentaenoic acid, whatever. But it's also a silicate source. You have to actually like feed it something additionally to make the diatom grow. And sea urchins require a source of silicate to build their spines and whatnot.
And are you using this just for the urchins, or are you using it for the farm as well?
Because if you do this successfully, this stuff grows very quickly. I've had to like put it into our farm, and like one of the main managers here that does the chemistry, he's like, please, can we stop doing that? You're like spiking the nitrate and phosphate. And I'm like, I have no other place to put this for right now. Like the urchins take like this much, and I have gallons of this. So eventually we started to do some zooplankton, and now we also have a tank that's like full of non-photosynthetic filter feeders. So I do have like an outlet for that, and soon we will actually be able to sell it. So we'll be able to offset some of this growth.
Okay, Than. So if I pulled this actually from one of the pictures you sent me recently. So I think I saw. I mean, I think didn't you say to me? I think we're missing something from this. Is it because there's something happens around here or something like that which we can't see? But essentially, this is where it first starts. That's recognisable. But it literally this process happens over a period of how many hours or days is it? It's so short, isn't it?
Right. So the first 3 stages there happen within 24 hours, basically. Once I had like fertilized eggs. So it's really interesting when you fertilize these like sea urchin eggs. They develop this halo, and then it takes about 3-4 hours before that single fertilized cell is like 32 cells. And then by the next morning, you no longer really have these fertilized eggs at all. You have prisms. And they're actively swimming around at that point.
Amazing.
How small are they at that stage?
Very difficult to see with your naked eye. Okay. I would say that 50 microns.
Wow.
Yeah.
Something that also interested me, and Andrew and I was watching at the time as a little giggle, but you can actually have too much sperm. Is that right, Than?
Yeah. Okay. So backing up a little bit, it was a slight miracle that I was actually able to get any eggs whatsoever, because of all the urchins that I had collected and tried to like induce spawning. You do that by stressing them, basically, and you can stress them in a number of different ways. And I started to stress them. I got the gametes, like the sperm from the males. That was fairly straightforward. That's always been like the easier thing. The getting eggs from the females has been more of a challenge because it's both a nutrition issue with the urchin, and also they are getting towards the end of that stress time frame where you have to give up and put them back. Otherwise, you risk killing them. So I had to do like a couple of different types of stress to try to get them to produce eggs. And only one of the urchins actually gave me eggs. Now, once you get eggs, you have to then like put a little bit of sperm into that same sample to fertilize them all. And that's really tricky to do, having never done it before, because you have to do just enough to fertilize about 80% of the eggs, and you want to shoot low rather than too high, because as you mentioned, Paul, like there's something called hyperspermy, where if there's too like high of a concentration of sperm in that beaker, what'll happen is you'll have multiple sperm fertilizing an egg, and if that happens, that egg is unviable, basically. So it was a tricky thing because I'm kind of like guessing at it as to like how much I'm supposed to be putting in, because it's very dilute. You have to dilute the sperm and then add it in. But yeah, it's like roughly you're shooting for 80% fertilization. And the next day, sure enough, there's like a whole bunch of unfertilized eggs sitting at the bottom of the beakers. But all the others that did get fertilized that next day are swimming around in like the early prism stage.
I suppose that's down to in the wild there would never be that much sperm in concentration, so they have to produce way more than's necessary. And I suppose, and then when we're doing this in a captive style environment, we can, I suppose, choke it in so many words. Choke it with either too many eggs, too much sperm. It's in such a high concentration. But Than, I wanted to, like, because obviously there's a lot of hobbyists in the room that are listening to all of this. And obviously, you know, you've put the like in true fan style, all of the investment that you could possibly want in at and thrown it at this. But the reality is that, and is that as Jamie showed me a long time ago as well, practically every hobbyist could have a go at this if they wanted to on a small scale, couldn't they? It's not an impossibility. I think they learn the various different types of phytoplankton. That's where they've got to start from, isn't it? I mean, if we try and give this to the people, if you know what I mean, rather, you know, 'cause the thing, when Jamie first spoke to me about it, I was like, yeah, well, Jamie, do you fancy coming down and giving me a hand? Because he just talks and talks and talks, and then my head explodes, and then I glaze over, and I think, no, I'll park that. It sounds a bit too complicated.
It's all done in a lab environment as well,
but,
which helps to your point, Than, isn't it? Around you've got the skills to do it, you've got the methodology to do it, you're used to doing different things, but there's probably a process and steps to it. Yeah. And if you're doing it in lab, you've got less contamination.
Well, less contamination. And I think the real problem is, as I've found out when I've tried growing phytoplankton here, I always contaminate because I've never got
I've tried
a separate space. Yeah. But you can do it.
I've grown phyto before.
And Laura, have you ever attempted anything like? I know you've done a bit of breeding, didn't you?
I used to grow it and sell it in the shop.
Yeah, was that Nanacropolis?
Yeah,
yeah. But you know, Nanacropolis though, fan for the tuxedo, any good or no good?
No good.
No good.
Okay, so
there's all about the phyto.
Yeah, so there's two green ones that are easy to grow. Allegedly, I've never tried. One is Nanachloropsis, like you mentioned, and the other one is Tetrasalmus.
Yeah, I've tried both. Yeah,
and they're fine for other things, but they're not good for urchins specifically. I forget which one is which, but one of them is orders of magnitude too large, so the urchins can never eat that. Just size alone is the wrong size. The other one is the right size, but because it has a thick cell wall, it is not digestible by urchin larvae. And so that's why I have to try to do T. isochrysis, Rhodomonas, and Cattoceras, which all three of those are more challenging than Nanachloropsis and Tetrasalmus. The most challenging is probably Rhodomonas. It's way more sensitive.
Yeah, and I know you went to great lengths to... because obviously when you started getting into the phytoplankton thing, one of the unfortunate factors Than had to cope with, Laura, was an air pump noise.
Yeah, and
that really, can I use the phrase, because it doesn't matter to my YouTube figures, that really pissed on your cornflakes then, didn't it? Because there was a humming noise in your farm. And I must admit, when I'm reading all my WhatsApp messages and you said, I've just got an air pump, I sniggered immediately.
Yeah,
they make so much noise.
Yeah, the air pumping system, I think that we've spent about at least $1,000 on.
What, silencing it?
Jesus.
Yeah, it's pretty quiet. You know what? It's going to get quieter too, because it's not absolutely quiet.
He's going to have a member of staff with a straw.
Yes, it blowing in it. Yes,
yeah. But it's that was actually an important piece though, because because we were able to build in like a lot of sterilization procedure into the air system as well. But like the sterilization part, I think, is the most challenging part when it comes to phytoplankton, and I think that was one of the things that I needed to conquer early on and make systematized, because it's so easy to goof that part up. And so we actually we bought an autoclave, did all kinds of just improvements around that, so we didn't have to deal with bleach so much. Everybody else uses bleach. It worked out great for everybody else. We tried it. We immediately had some failures. It's like, okay, we could either figure this out, or we can throw some money into actual infrastructure and make the process easier and more consistent. And once we did that, it was like off to the races.
Where are you growing the phytoplankton though, Than? Because obviously I know the layout of the building. Have you found a secret cupboard somewhere away from all the potential contamination? Unlike me, we tried growing it right next door to a reef system.
It's about 2 feet away from a reef system. But it's fine. Yeah, it's fine because the way that it's set up, the containers themselves, they're all autoclaved with the salt water in it, you inoculate it with your phytoplankton, you put in your fertilizers and whatnot. And then the only thing at that point that will be an input is the air. And so the air system that, that we're joking about, like how it's quiet, it's because it's in the air pump is located in this box. And all the air going into the box is being filtered down to about 98% clean. It's I don't know if this is like a European standard that you guys work with, but there's like something called like a HEPA filter.
Yes, we know that. Yeah.
This is one step down from a HEPA filter. And the only reason that I don't want to go to a full HEPA filter is because I think it triples the cost. But I am able to get 98% clean air. So then that gets sent into like an entire like vast distribution network where I can basically draw air from any of the workstations, including the phytoplankton rack. Now, at every single bottle coming off of that, now I put in a true micron filter that will sterilize it down to 0.22 microns. And that is considered the laboratory standard for sterile. So every single bottle has its own sterile air source, and then it basically flushes flushes the air out the top. And it does it in a way that like basically nothing can settle back down on it and contaminate the culture.
Yeah, so that's really the key, isn't it? The key is if you do fancy having a go at this, because I'm pretty sure that these sorts of methodology and things like that, there'll be a lot more hobbyists. There's certainly hobbyists now spawning corals in captivity. So I wonder whether we'll see an awful lot more of this in the near future, with urchin spawning and on a smaller scale, but very much like bedroom clownfish production. I can see this becoming a thing.
Well, speaking of like any type of aquaculture, I was talking to one of my industry colleagues. Actually, it was Ryan Batchelor. He loved the video that I had put out, and he was just saying like, with somebody with your skill set, shouldn't you be working on like $10,000 angelfish and not like $5 urchins? But I was explaining to him, it's like, well, first of all, I need urchins. I don't need an angel, right? But expanding on that, it's like if you want to culture anything, it starts off with phytoplankton. It's like this is like your foundational part of your aquaculture program. Like De Young Marine Life, they have to nail down their phytoplankton production. Then they have to nail down their zooplankton production and then work their way up from there. So if you wanted to do your clownfish or your like insane like masked angels and whatnot, or some delicate butterfly that nobody's been able to successfully do in the past, it's going to start with this foundational layer of your ability to produce any number of phytoplankton to like gut load things like rotifers.
Yeah, Laurie, you did. I know that because obviously I do seahorses now, but you originally did seahorses, didn't you? What did you do? You also done clownfish as well, did you?
No, never clowned.
No,
seahorses.
Have you ever thought about doing spawning?
A few hours in the day, there's a lot of things I'd love to do.
And is that one of them though? A little bit more of the spawning side of it.
Actually, Than and I were going to hold ourselves each accountable with this tuxedo project, and at Christmas I was ahead, and then life got super busy, and now Than is where he is, and my phyto is still in the fridge.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Because I mean, I originally set up this unit, and I was going to attempt it. And I think I bought the books and I started reading a bit more, but I never even got to the phytoplankton stage. So there you go.
So are you tempted?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm tempted, but I will touch on something, a sort of more controversial subject, though. Actually, Than, I was going to just before we move on to other things this evening, but there is obviously, I know for you, you are really, I would say, probably from where I've travelled and what have you, probably the most sustainable coral farm I've ever visited in the true sense of the word. You could literally imports from tomorrow and operate completely without any more imports again. right now. But I think that's not really a true representation of the entire industry, and certainly not worldwide. And certainly for us Europeans, that will never be the case. We are wholeheartedly dependent on wild imports and captive bred species. But I think it's really important to get across to hobbyists and understand that you need both, because you always need new genetic material. And if we lose our hobby on wild imports, for example, we will have no new Passer Angel genetics to cross into another genetic. And I experienced this with a seahorses project when I took that over. The seahorse strain that was in the UK, for example, was on its last legs. There was too much inbreeding. There was a lot of failures, and I saw with gas bubble disease and all sorts of problems that I was witnessing as well from an old strain. So invariably, I had to reach out and bring in some new blood in from the Far East, which came from an aquaculture facility. You know, these were tank bred horses as well that I brought in, but I was able to move those boxes from one place in the world to another. So having the ability to move animals across the globe is a very important thing. But the minute that you say no imports or whatever, that will affect people like Jamie Craggs. That will affect all sorts of aspects of the trade. And one of the things for you, it's obvious that you need to do this. But for Laura and for there is also another. I don't think I'm speaking out of turn, but in other words, I'd like to spawn urchins, but I think I think to a degree, we've still got to bear in mind that this phrase that's going around the trade, something called biopiracy, which is that those tuxedo urchins belong to Indonesia, the Philippines, the Indochina oceans, and those people that have been collecting them for a very long time, that make their living from collecting these urchins and things like that. It's a form of sustainable fishing as such, if you like. Yeah. But so how do you feel about I know that you can obviously sustain yourself.
No, that's an interesting question, only because like I wonder how the freshwater folks have dealt with that same quandary, because they have been aquaculturing everything imaginable for
60
decades
years
now.
Yeah, 60
decades.
years. Yeah, well, but people still bring in cardinal tetras from the Amazon, and there's still as many there today as there always has been.
Yeah, and I'm curious about the perspective of the biopiracy arguments. Like, do they ever have those types of discussions? Because personally, I've never heard that. Yeah, I haven't heard that before. But then again, it's like I think you guys over in the EU and the UK, I think you're more conscientious towards that sort of issue more than like America is. Like, I think that we're pretty dead set on burning everything to the ground right now. So no, we wouldn't. I've not encountered that perspective before, and at least not lately.
Yeah, so I'm always just keen to balance out the idea that whilst aquaculture, I think, is incredibly important, and I think it's good that we do know how, for example, to spawn yellow tangs. Yeah, but at the same time, I think to myself, you know, the sea still boil with gold around the coast of Hawaii, and you know, it's a very emotive subject. Basically, at the moment, emotion seems to be driving the scientific fact, and I think that it's important to always recognise the idea that, you know, when we discuss aquaculture, we should always bear in mind that without new genetic material, there is no aquaculture long term. That's the way I see it. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, for sure. But in a way, I think with the urchins, there will be two distinct products.
Yeah,
there'll be someone with a big tank isn't going to want a tiny little urchin. They're going to want an adult urchin to do a bigger job. Someone who's got, I don't know, a frag farm, a frag tank, or loads of intricate rock that they want cleaned are going to want smaller urchins. So there's almost two distinct customer. It's the different ends of the urchin.
Yeah, I just think it's always important that we never lose the idea. Like, for example, clownfish production. That's a very clever. Don't get me wrong. I think with clownfish particularly, and with things like urchins and certain species where there's an insatiable demand for those animals, aquaculture's fundamental. We need it. But I think that when we get into other species, just because you can, should you? Because, for example, a well-run forest, you know, or a well-run coral reef, if it's coppiced properly, we're looking after the reef, aren't we? We could do it all in captivity. We wouldn't care anymore about coral reefs. We wouldn't care anymore in terms of, you know, that I think we're giving people jobs to protect their local neighbourhoods, and it certainly works with the Forestry Commission, doesn't it? So,
yeah, I agree, but
yeah,
maybe Than's not the right demographic.
probably
for
not.
the
He
conversation.
probably doesn't. Yeah, probably it's not necessary. But certainly the most sustainable coral farm I've ever visited, Than, and it's a testament to the skill of your team and everything, and a wonderful experience I've had on both occasions. Paul, do we want to go into the chat?
I was going
for
to
a
say,
minute?
Than, do you want to answer that question from Ange? I'll then go back
Hi,
to the
Angela.
chat and go through that whilst you're answering.
So I think that it is possible to tell the difference, but not by me. I mean, there are like sea urchin people that can just tell on sight. They all look exactly the same to me. So I just have to harvest enough of them and hope that I'm getting like some of one and some of the other.
Right, so there is a way of doing it. I suppose that just comes with experience, isn't it? It would be like it's not easy to tell the sex of tangs, for example. However, I bet if you work with them every single day of the week, you get an idea just by a female looking more rounded and holding eggs, and a male looking skinny.
Rude.
And sorry, I didn't mean it rude.
Why are the females round?
Well, no, because they're holding eggs. Males are generally puny on the reef, aren't they?
Speak for yourself.
Well, a male clownfish is puny to a female clownfish.
It's a bit like a Bangor cardinal.
Yeah,
I
Bangor
struggle
cardinal.
to tell the difference between male and female. I think you can, can't you? But I've never been
Yeah.
able to. But of course, if you try and get a male and female, if you get to two males, quite often they can
Yeah.
end up
All
fighting.
complaints should be addressed to AAC.
Right, let's dive into the chat. So we're going back almost to the beginning. So when we were saying hello to people, because we dived into the conversation. So you got Debbie and Jason. Hi, you both. They're going Love2Reef. So take an emergency drive from our holiday in
Oh my
Cornwall
God!
back to Essex. The electric was cut off, has been put back on, but the chip. So that could be
Oh, no.
7, 8 hour. Well, depends.
Yeah.
6 to 8 hour journey, depending on where you're coming from
Oh
in
my
Cornwall.
God! And he only just flew here the other day because he popped in to pick a UV.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, he came back from Cornwall
Kind of holiday supplies.
by a flew from Newquay back to
Yeah.
here in order to go back to Colchester to change a UV bulb, do a water change, and then go and have his holiday back in Cornwall, which means that now he's had to drive all the way from Cornwall all the way back again. So it must be something that Jason done while he was water
Well, it was
changing.
so I don't know if there was cut off just in their house
Yeah.
or
I
in the
see.
area, because it says when it come back on, it looks like they tripped the system. So
Oh.
all level, your electric goes back on, everything kicks back in.
Yeah.
If the RCD was tripped,
Yeah,
then
true. Yeah.
I don't know. That's what my interpretation.
All
there.
right. What's the next
Why is it
Right,
one?
always when you go away? Why is it always when you
It
go away?
always feels that way, doesn't it? Unfortunately, I've always got people that can look
It
after
happens
the
with
tank.
shops, and it happens, I'm sure, with farms
It
too.
happens,
Every time
yeah.
I
Does it?
leave,
Yeah.
something happens. Absolutely. And I'm sure, does it happen to you?
Yeah, I had to call
Oh,
you
yeah,
out
it's
one
right.
time.
I went out once to yours, didn't I? Yeah. Right, now, Rama. Actually, I've got some news. I no longer smoke or vape.
Mm.
Did
After
you?
40 years, I got extremely ill in Germany recently, a type of sort of pneumonia. And so it was sort of, how can I put it? I had no choice but to give up. So that was the time. So no more smoking. I'm around about, I don't know, 2 months, 3 months in so far. But who knows what will happen in summer.
Are you missing it?
Oh, every day I'm bored out of my brains. I love
Awesome.
smoking. I absolutely love
Especially
it.
if you've done
but-
something for 30 years. To give that
yeah,
up,
I
that's
loved
not
it. I
easy, is
just
it?
did like the idea of dying.
Well,
Yeah,
it's
but
not-
like,
That's
yeah.
inconvenient.
You know,
Yeah,
but
that's an inconvenient truth,
that
isn't
bit.
it?
But no, I miss it. And Angela still toxifies me with her occasional bit of vaping. But I'm going to definitely become one of the worst, ex-smokers there ever was.
Here we go.
There you go.
And there's Deborah saying, I don't know why I did a laugh face there. We are crying inside.
Yeah,
I can
I bet.
imagine, just not the care of the tank, but it's all
Yeah.
the to and fro, isn't it?
Well, I hope you're all right.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got some good evenings
Hi,
there.
Steve.
So hi, Steve. Let's kind of go down. There you go. Tidal Gardens is generally ridiculous. I think that's in a good way.
Yeah, it
Than.
is, yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. I wonder whether Charlie's ever been. Is Charlie tuned in from America, or is he a local? I wonder.
Not sure.
Yeah.
I've seen that name before.
Yeah.
It's not wrong.
Yeah.
Mm.
And then we've got kind of watching videos for 8-9 years.
Yeah, that's.
watching-
I have to say, I thought I nearly upset Than once because he doesn't appreciate how hard it is for me to go sleep. But I said to him, I absolutely love watching. I never forget it. I tried watching the video Than did on chalice corals. I think it was 4 or 5 times, and I get about halfway through, and I'd crash out. But that was a compliment, but I'm not sure he took it as a compliment.
Hey
You
there,
know,
I get that a lot. I hear it a lot.
I watched it 4 times. Then that's definitely good for the YouTube sort of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I've watched that and many other videos. I haven't
Yeah.
fallen asleep because
And
those ones on those specific corals are fantastic.
They are.
Some of those are really old, aren't they? So when you get first, I remember seeing those, some of those 9, 10, 11 years ago. When you're looking after a specific coral, and I love chalice, when you see that in the kind of tips, even though they're really old, they stand the test of time, which I think is a credit because a lot of things
Yeah.
have changed, but those kind of things are as good today.
I
as they was
don't
then.
think we agree. I don't think anyone has done such a comprehensive range of coral videos, have they?
Than, are you near like a really small doorway? You're going to be able to get out all right as soon as your head's grown so much.
He knows it anyway. He knows it.
Yes, he's amazing.
I
His
think it's-
videos are amazing. His urchins are amazing.
just because he's ahead of you on the urchin front.
Yeah, we just
Yeah, I'm only
winning.
resentful.
Yeah.
Right. So we've got Joe. Hiya, Joe.
Hi,
Good
Joe.
to see you. Right, just moving down.
I think I
Right.
saw Jamie joined as well.
Yeah.
I think.
Did you see Jamie?
I think he's up
I'm
there.
sure we
I
saw
think he is.
Jamie.
It's somewhere. There
There
he
you go.
is. There he is. Hi,
Sorry,
Joe.
Jamie, I missed you.
Hiya.
Right, so just going
Let's
down.
be very diplomatic the other day, old Jay. It was funny.
So if anyone's got any questions around urchins, if you want to put it in the comments, we'll get to it because I plan to go to the whole of the end of this before we move on. If there's any questions, please put them in now. Right,
Ron,
just working
that was Ron
through.
up
We've
there,
got
I
Ron.
think.
Hi,
And
Ron.
And do you think you'll do more than just tuxedos, or is tuxedos the only interest?
Only tuxedos, because a lot of the other urchins they bulldoze like a lot more,
Yeah, they do.
and so tuxedos are like and that's also like it's very brand consistent with Tidal Gardens.
Very true.
I've got,
Yes,
I've
it
got a
does.
question.
Right.
How many parent urchins have you got at the minute, and how many are you using for each spawn?
So I grab 12 at a time, and I'm trying to now sort them a little bit better so that I have a better chance of getting all males and females. So every single time I go through this exercise, and I know that those X number are males, I'll put them in a single aquarium. And the ones that I think are females, I put into another aquarium. So the next time that I harvest, I can like have a better shot at it, I guess.
And
Grabbing
how often are you spawning them? Do you give them like a break in between?
months. Yeah, months. And hopefully to not hopefully I won't even have to do them like in a year, preferably. But it's to the point where like the nutritional part is kind of the next step for me, and it's getting to the point where I might have to make my own food to feed to the female specifically to give them enough fat to produce eggs, because like these urchins only eat vegetables, and how do you get fat into vegetables? It's kind of a challenge, so I might have to make my own.
Will it be a question thing? I've got 2 things actually, a funny one and then one something based on that. Will it be a question of sticking, like years ago they used to say if you had like problem fish, and we used to put an aquarium outside in full sunlight or daylight, try and give it as maximum light as you can, make the tank go really green. Yeah, obviously filled with seawater at the correct specific gravity, if you like, with an airline in it. But you used to have rocks. We used to make rocks years ago that were green to feed to tangs, if you like. And we used to just chuck them outside or something if it was summertime or whatever. Is that a way potentially of just creating like a really messy tank? Like,
So I have messy tanks. like normally.
That's a lie.
There's a degree of messiness, isn't there? I suppose.
I've never seen a messy tank at a tidal gardens.
So one of our tanks actually has a lot of ulva, and historically, ulva is one of the reasons why I want to desperately grow sea urchins to control the ulva. Ulva also happens to be the gold standard to feed to urchins for aquaculture. So I'm putting all of my females into that ulva tank to really like A, help control the ulva, and B, to like make sure they get as much nutrition as possible. But I'm still running up against the fat issue. So I need to find a way to load up an algae-based food with like the healthy fatty acids and stuff like that to also feed alongside the ulva that's present in that particular frag system.
Okay, and then my funny question is as Angela had already alluded to this, is that about telling the difference between males and females. Is it the males have larger appendages and females have? Well, I mean, how do you know? Have you studied this at all? I mean, do they have willies and pannies?
Don't know about that. I can tell you that the males.
That was my most scientific question I could ask.
The males spawn very, very quickly, and the females take about 45 minutes.
There we go. Shall we
Very
move,
funny.
shall
Right,
we
yeah,
move on?
right, shall we? Right.
We're moving on.
Well, we got an anecdote just to move on into the mental health.
Should we do? Because should we do
Yeah,
all the,
sure, yeah,
commentary first and come back? Is that okay?
Right,
so
cool.
Martin from.
Hi, Martin.
Sean.
I see Martin when I go to De Jong's lab.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, Martine.
Bristle-tooth Tang, been such a worker.
Yeah.
For Reality Reefers. Hello to
Mr. Tang Reefs. Yeah. Lindsay.
Yeah, Ipswich Reef. Good evening to you. And then we've got Lindsay. Hiya. Ready for the show. Absolutely. We'll come on to that in a moment. Yeah, 5 weeks to go this weekend. Looking forward to that. And then we've got a little bit around the Horniman Museum to see Jamie's work. Yeah, it's a treat if you can go. It's just a treat if you go into the museum itself.
Yeah.
And to see all the reef tanks and everything else. That is, I think, is superb. Having been there last year without behind the scenes. So it's worth a visit just for that. Right, let's go down. Rama's got a cigar for Love2Reef.
Maybe.
There we go. You know, you're already the worst.
Yeah.
You're already the worst
The staff, honestly, was so shocked when they found out. Because they used to send me home. If they knew I only had 2 cigarettes in my box, they'd say, right, I think it's time for you to go home, boss. Yeah. But they were really worried. But I've just been bored. I've just been walking. I've gained 2.5 extra hours a day not smoking.
Wow.
So, I've got 20 more hours a week spare.
Yeah, so the answer to the question, never been before to Tidal Gardens. There we go. So there's a question here. Can I ask where this clinical approach to your work comes from, Than?
That's a good question. I think that being like more particular and being more fastidious and all this, it builds upon itself over time, where like once you get used to it, you can't go back. And then so it only kind of just goes in one direction for me. And like, I mean, at some point, I'm sure that there's like some insane diminishing returns. But again, I find like so much satisfaction of doing it and seeing how it helps the overall operation that it just keeps on traveling in that direction for me.
So have you always been like that? Or was it something since you've, I suppose, had Tidal Gardens, you operationally, and you look at efficiencies and you've then got a set process or a process. And so therefore it just becomes a habit and a way of working, I suppose, in your operation.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when we first started in the greenhouse, it was very rough. And then over like, practically decades at this point, it's a matter of constantly like rebuilding and polishing. And sometimes it's really also meeting people and seeing their work. So for example, I thought that I was a pretty good plumber in the greenhouse. And then when we had to hire a professional plumber to do this building, it's like, oh, I realized that there's a huge difference between like hobbyist plumber in a greenhouse versus like a professional plumber, and just learning all of those like best practices and like real deal fit and finish. It's like, okay, a lot of room for improvement. And so when you kind of like get that influence from a lot of like the professional environment, I mean, even like Martine from De Jong Marine Life, like seeing like their commitment to trying to do clean rooms and things of that sort. Like a lot of that stuff really, like, I get a lot of inspiration from that. Not so much somebody's home aquarium, but a lot more from like the industrial professional side of things.
Yeah, there's a lot to be inspired from De Jong's hatchery, isn't there, Than? Yeah.
Because the way you talk.
What does staff think of the greenhouse and now this new build? Are they like?
Believe it or not, a lot of them like to hang out in the greenhouse. Yeah, there's definitely some people that spend more of their time in the greenhouse than at the new building. But even then, I have to say that the greenhouse itself is getting more polished as time goes on too.
I suppose those practices rub off, don't they, from that operation to that, and then the practice is this how you think. Because the way you talk reminds me of some of the case studies of Honda and other companies like that from Japan in the 90s, how they operationalized the whole assembly line and how they kind of make small gains and efficiencies and working on kind of agile and that kind of stuff, just to make things as sharp as it can do, which kind of goes back decades to that kind of operations.
Yes, and I think it's also like it's very easy to be blind to certain operational things because it's comforting to you. So for example, like I'll suggest that we need to do something a certain way, and one of my staff will push back and say, no, it's fine because all I do is blah, blah, blah. And I always have to like take a step back and just say, look, it's not about you. It's because like it might make perfect sense for you to keep doing it your way, but I want anybody to be able to come in and do this, right? Like that's what's, you know, at the end of the day, like the really important thing. It's like if something is kind of isolated to one person, it's not going to work long term. So so it is a constant refining. Even when people are doing a perfectly good job doing it right now, there's always room for improvement.
Makes sense. Right, let's go back to chat. Got a few more hellos and maybe some questions.
Hi, Mark.
Hiya. Right. Into you. How you doing, Matt? Right, let's go through. Who else have we got? We got. I think that's the last. Last question now.
So, Than,
it's called lean. Yeah, absolutely.
That's right. And Than, one thing that we were talking about earlier on, just before we came on live, was about we were talking about this mental health awareness week, and that will lead us into some bits and pieces regarding Love2Reef tonight. So mental health for your staff is something that we've spoke about before, actually. So you're, as a boss, you've really tried, haven't you, to create, as much as it's a pretty coral palace, there are some serious stuff relating to staff, reasons why you do these things, the reasons why it's so quiet. And I don't just mean from a mechanics point of view. I remember that chat when we were upstairs once at your place and you said to me, I can literally hear a pump downstairs if it's failing. And it did one night, or didn't it? You heard about, I know you do it for those reasons, but you also very much very conscious of your staff's mental health, aren't you?
Yeah, and I do have to say that it starts off with a very selfish layer of me wanting to create a work environment that I want to go to. So I don't love work. In fact, I would rather not work. So if I am to spend 9 to 10 hours a day, let's say, working at a place, and oftentimes as an employee, you really don't have a ton of control outside of your desk, right? Mm-hmm. But I have a ton of control when you own the entire operation. So a lot of like my decisions early on was like, I want to make a place that I'm genuinely excited to go to and do work at. So a lot of the decisions that were made here was with that ethos. And I kind of had to drag a lot of people kicking and screaming to the finish line. So, for example, when we were building this building, I wanted to have very nice kitchens and bathrooms. And like my mother was like, we don't have to spend that much money on bathrooms. This is a work coral farm. You know, it is an industrial building. There's no need to have a nice bathroom. And I was like, listen, Mom, we are already paying tens of thousands of dollars just to be able to put any type of bathroom in. Okay, just for the plumbing and whatever. Okay, whether it is a hole in the ground or something nice, it's already costing $30,000. Okay, so why don't we spend a little bit extra and actually make it nice? And when people come over, they see the bathroom for the first time and they're like, this is a lot for a coral farm.
Oh, I've used it to its full extent.
It's too much information.
It is a very.
I've seen the Japanese toilets or wherever they're from. Where are they from? Japan?
They're from Japan.
I thought they were. I graced one and felt very comfortable. It's very good. And I've also noticed as well in the kitchen area, particularly, not only do you have, as March discovered, some fine whiskey hidden away, which we drank most of it, we also discovered some of a fantastic coffee machine as well. And I'm sure that puts a smile on the staff's faces every day. But in terms of joking aside, it's a really nice place to work, isn't it? You've really tried to give the staff somewhere nice to be.
Yeah, because I think that this is I guess this is me at my most like I don't know what the correct term is, but I think that as far as like staffing goes and whatnot, everybody is on a timer, right? There's at some point you've just kind of had enough of a place, and I think by trying to remove as much friction from the work environment, you extend that timeline out. Like, unfortunately, I'm happy with my staff, but I'm not under the illusion that they're going to be here forever. They've been here a really long time, between like 6 to 20 years. So I'm already like playing with house money as far as that's concerned. Mm-hmm. But everybody is going to eventually hit the end of that battery, right? And so like a lot of like the sort of decisions that were made to like make this place a nicer workplace is just to like cut down on that completely unnecessary friction of just being in a work environment.
I think it's a really, really important thing, actually. It's definitely made me think about things as I've always tried to create a nice environment as such, but I think that's always been driven by for the customers predominantly rather than the staff. And I think maybe that's something that I'll take on board going forward, that it's really important to create, as I say, the best possible, because of course with our jobs, we invest a ton of time into people, teaching them so much that you don't want them running out the door next week next year after you've just spent all year teaching them how to perform a test properly to the standard that you want them to do, for example. So it's certainly something that I'll take on board. And I know that, as I said, what with it being Mental Health Week this week, and of course we're approaching Love2Reef, I know Matt's been really, really busy pushing Love2Reef and things, and Paul, you've put some posts out regarding the money that we've raised for Mind. And I was going to say, actually, I thought we'd raised slightly more than that. I think we've not added Coral Freaks to that.
Love2Reef is 13,000 and Coral Reefs, I think, is 5 to 7. I can't remember how much that is.
So it's almost gone all into the same pot in so many words, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think we're up to around about, I'm sure it's 15 to 17,000 or something like that, isn't it?
I think Coral Freaks is at least 4 to 5.
Yes, yeah.
On that, so you're you're at the 18,000 mark, and we'll probably hit over 20,000 hopefully, all in all. So I think if you look at it, we've got 5 weeks this week till Love2Reef. Thank you for all those people. There's a lot of people in the chat that bought tickets. So ticket sales are actually going well now, which is it's a tough environment because people haven't got lots of money at the moment. So thank you for those people. And it's not just a ticket, it's the travel and Just kind of, there is usually a Friday night gathering, should we call it? Matt, do you usually go to the Friday night? I can't remember.
I didn't last year, but I am this year.
Right, so tell us about, and put you on the spot. Tell us about the Friday night, because by the time Friday night comes, I'm knackered because I've helped to set up for the day, so I don't go to the Friday night. So tell us a little bit about the Friday night.
It's just the initial buzz, so you can talk to people from vendors, stalls. Paul's there with Ange. Connor might be there. There's reefers from all over the UK, and we're just talking about what the next day is going to look like. We're talking about our experiences, what's going on with our tanks. We're talking about fish, coral, and even sometimes we're talking about life, work, hobby, like other hobbies, and we're talking about like maybe problems we've got. We're just bouncing ideas off of each other. It's more than, and for me, it's become, lots of them become friends. Like people I've talked out of sort of events. I'm now talking to people all over the UK, which I'd never meet in a million years, but I've met them through the hobby. And actually, just that advice to be able to pick up the phone, because the hobby can be a bit lonely. You can be stuck in your lounge looking at your tank, which can be a bit like, and if it isn't going very well, that normally ends up one way where you leave the hobby. So the Friday night is an amazing atmosphere, and I recommend it to anyone.
Yeah, so it's at the Green Man pub, which is also a hotel, but the Green Man is fully booked. But there's a Premier in Church Langley, which is 5 minutes away, which I know people, some of the vendors have had to book in there. I know some reefers have booked in there. So I think the plan is, I don't know what time people, there's usually some people there from about 5 o'clock in the evening at the Green Man, but you can just turn up there if you fancy it. And if you wanted to check in, then you got the Premier in Church Langley, as I would say.
Yeah,
so
I had Reality Reef in the chat. He's been messaging me over TikTok saying that obviously where to stay, because obviously Green Man, they must have to pay us soon, and they must have to donate to this mine, because I'm thinking to myself, we sell it out every time we put an event on. So
it was sold out. It was sold out within a couple of weeks of the show being announced, because I was in with Paul and Ange, and we was looking, and there was about 4 rooms available on booking.com, but you couldn't book direct with the hotel. So that seemed to be, I think some people have booked before they bought their tickets.
I think it's as well. It's wonderful that I think it's as important now, the Friday night gatherings and the Saturday nights, as the actual event itself, because one of the main drives for you, Paul, was to get people together, was to get people to talk and all that. And we generally, whether it's trade or hobbyists, we generally all meet up for a drink, don't we? And something to eat, and I think it's really, we used to reef clubs, didn't we, years ago? But the reef clubs seem to have dissolved. There's that, and often it involves an awful lot of alcohol, as Joe points out. The pillows at the Green Man give him a terrible headache.
But he's a vendor, so he has to kind of be up.
We have people dressed in banana costumes. We've got someone who last year turned up looking like Annie Lennox.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Steve,
that was really funny.
I saw the pictures of that.
Yeah, that was really good. And actually, I will just give one little shout. This is Baz. This is a gentleman from Holland that Than you might have met before. He's also been over to here several times. Than might have met him when he was in Holland, actually. He's got a little thing going on in Holland to replace Vivarium, Than, called Coffees and Corals. It's just going to be a small stab something, because of course we've lost Vivarium. Vivarium, for me, I'm sure Than would agree, best show on earth.
Very
nice. Do you agree with that? Absolutely, yeah.
Been there,
And you've been the same.
I have, yeah.
And unfortunately, it's all over, which is a shame. Down to some silly stuff relating to parking, I believe. I found out that the actual site got a little bit greedy, I believe.
I've got to say, the amount of time that we spent on Love2Reef, and that is 250 people. Yeah, you got Vivarium over 2 days. That is 12,000 people.
Yeah,
that must be a whole year planning.
Absolutely, yeah.
The scale of it.
Yeah, I think that's a very important thing. My mental health would be rock bottom if it wasn't the hobby. I'm so glad I got into it. I've met some great friends through it. And do you know what? That's the reason why I think we do these things. Is that right, Paul?
Yeah. So if you look at when it started,
or is it all about the money?
It's all about the money of raising for charity. That's for sure. Yeah, I do focus on how much money we can earn or actually earn to actually pay. Because all the profits go to the charity mine, so it covers the cost, and all the profits go to that. Yeah, but it was around gathering together, getting people together. Because I think with social media, it can feel more social, but in a way it becomes more isolated.
I think it's more isolated
because I used to go to Reef Club meets all of the time years ago, and they are nowhere near as much as that. We're talking probably over 10 years ago, I would say.
I think mental health can be quite a taboo. So something like an event like this where we're not necessarily talking about our own health, but actually people that don't get out very often, that are stuck indoors, they look forward to this because this is their sort of Christmas, and get to see people, get to meet people, get to talk. And actually it's that escape from actually.
Yeah. So the Friday night, you would agree, is equally almost as important as the Saturdays and Saturday nights,
it's part of it, isn't it? If you look at it, it becomes the weekend. It just doesn't become the day, it becomes the evening as well, where if you haven't met anyone for the first time, it's a great place to meet people for the first time. And I think, Matt, what I found, and I've said to you, Paul, from the very first one, the people, it was only 50 people, and Laura, you kind of was with us on that first one as well. The number of people that was actually open to talking about their mental health and the hobby, and how the hobby helped them get out of a hole or addiction or something like that. So I was really surprised how open and forward people were, because I hadn't met a lot of those people. I didn't know them from Adam, kind of thing. And I always have conversations with people that come up to me and talk about mental health on the day. Yeah, which I've been really surprised that people are quite open, because they feel quite relaxed and in a space where they feel they can open up and talk, which I think in itself is brilliant. Yeah. So I think in terms of the event itself, so it's 5th year. We've got obviously AAC, we've got the LFS here. Then in the hall, we've got 4 vendors. We've got 2 of them here. We've got Laura of Eco Marine, so that's brilliant on that side. So you've been with us since the beginning when you was a paying guest, and then you was
well, she got stitched up for a talk on the first one.
You was.
Do you remember?
And do you know what, Laura? People still talk about that talk.
Yeah, that was the first.
Because I don't do those things.
No, but in terms of what you said about Gonia, because you go back 5 years,
no one was really talking about manganese.
Gonia Porous is now probably as popular as torches, I would say. Back then it was, you had a Gonia Porous end up being like a golf ball. And I think it's changed. And look, people talk about what you said then about manganese and magnesium and that kind of thing, amongst other things. And people still remember that they were there because people message and we hear about it.
Yeah, I should have asked for shares in manganese.
We did do a little quick fire as well, didn't we? Didn't we do some sort of ask questions?
Yeah, there was. That's where we collared Laura to be fair, because there was Jez talking about lighting.
Yes, sir.
And then that was that part. I thought it was a bit of a gap. Let's get a Q&A going. And Laura, would you like, come and say a few words?
That was quite popular, wasn't it?
It was good, and we sold out every show. That was sold out.
Yeah,
and
so
every show,
that was 50 sold out tickets, wasn't it, on the first one? So Coral Freaks was a bit of an experiment that sort of went all right, but there's bits of it that weren't quite right.
I think it's fantastic for 300 people as a first event.
Then it was scaled right back. Let's see how it goes. 50 people, wasn't it? Because I didn't want to do another one at the time.
Yeah.
Right. And then there was the next year came along and it was 100.
100. And then we went 200.
And then 250. Might be pushing 300 this time.
It depends, really. Because at about 11 o'clock, I remember it, the hall was absolutely rammed. And I'm thinking, you put many more people in this hall, it's going to be too busy from a crowd control. So there is a limitation on it, and hence why it's a ticketed event. And also, if people have an event where they don't pay, you have more dropouts.
Yeah, I think the other thing that I learned from Reefer Palooza this year, Than, actually, where we just come back from Orlando, was that a couple of the extremely famous coral vendors from the Orlando area, or one of them in particular, mentioned to me that actually attendance was slightly down this year, but there was a lot more vendors, which meant there was a lot more dilute, and some of those vendors felt that they weren't getting the same return back on their, if you like, there, because they do put an awful lot. I mean, the American shows, they put a ton of work into traveling all over the place, didn't they? I see
vendors always complain about that.
Do they?
It's funny how you said it like that, Fan, as if you're doing it as a whisper, but you're live on the internet.
They always complain. Is that right, Ben? Because is that something I'm just only picking up on as a Brit? But I was standing in a shop. Yeah, I was standing into 2 shops, and they both said to me, "Oh, figures are down this year. We haven't done as well this year." And then I hear tales that one of those shops spent $44,000 before the show opened. Buying other people's corals. So you wonder where all the money comes from sometimes, but it's a different scale.
And we are mindful of that. So in terms of the coral vendors, it's 4, and I wouldn't put more in than 4 because you've got the number of hobbyists there. So you need that balance that the vendors trade because you're giving up your time and it costs you money, and the hobbyists have a choice of 4 in the hall, and obviously then you've got AAC. So there is a balance because we could put more coral vendors in there, but then I think it starts to dilute it. So it's that kind of balance of who to have in the hall, and the vendors don't pay because, as far as I'm concerned, they give up their time, they give up their day, and then we cover our costs.
Try and keep it cheap, don't we? That's the thing.
Absolutely, because for every penny we spend, that doesn't go to mind, and that's the main ethos of the
Can we have a sneak peek from what Paul and Laura have planned for Love2Reef? Have they got any? Can they give anything away yet?
Oh, we don't. We don't talk about that sort of thing.
I have put some up on Instagram already.
Have you?
Yeah.
There was some nice pieces.
I see some nice stuff
there was some
appearing.
really nice
I did
pieces.
see some bits the other day. Well, I always try to be totally honest with you, because the shop's on site. I always try and do something a little bit different. So recently, you might notice, so I could sell corals, but there's corals in the shop. So I try in the hall to try and do something slightly different. However, I am running out of ideas of doing so. And I've done clams for 2 years on the trip, 2 years on the trot. I've done clams. Whether I'll do as many clams this time or not, I don't know. But I'll try and think of some other things, or at least different corals that I expect that Laura may or may. She might have them, she might not. And likewise for Ryan from Prestige. I don't really want to. And of course we've got Dan Collective. Dan Collective generally concentrates on SPS corals, really. Or certainly that's his thing. Laura, a lot of LPS and enemies and gonies and things like that. That's what Laura's a specialist about. So I'll try wherever I can, especially as the shop's already on site, to do something different. So
macroalgae.
Oh, bench.
Yeah, sell algae on the day. That would be great.
Soft coral.
Yeah, no one's really going to buy that though if they've got a tang, are they? Actually, they're very popular at the moment. Macroalgae, as it happens.
You see more things around with them in. It's growing.
Yeah,
I think more and more.
Why do things get popular when we're not allowed to import them anymore?
I might do brown corals because I like brown corals. I think people will eventually understand what I call the Colin Ford approach. Then, do you understand what I mean by that?
No.
You're going to get a wig? Is that what you mean?
I would love the afro, first of all. I would love that. No, Colin, this year, actually, I always loved Macro Lady. And I love Colin Ford's thing because he'll always have corals for me and for you, really, that you'd look at and you think, I've never seen one of them. And it might just be some weird little barium like Caribbean species or so I'll do train spotter corals. That would be my
things that don't sell is what you want to
I do corals that don't sell. That would be my thing.
Geeks like, but
things
no one
that
else likes.
Things that if you know that's how I look at it. So there you go. So last year I think I brought along Heronensis, and I think which is an incredibly rare coral, isn't it, really, in the UK? And I would guess that I probably sold out of 5 about 3 of them. Yeah. Brought some mangroves, didn't I? I've done quite a few clams as well. But I'll try and I had some Ventolina sea fans last time, that sort of thing, which you don't often see. So I'll concentrate on brown corals. Help you out, Laura.
Thanks.
And for those who haven't been, I suppose, to the show or to AAC before, you've got a lot of MPS corals, haven't you?
Yeah.
Which I think is quite unusual.
Yeah, that's because of me, because I'm a sucker for corals that are nigh on impossible to keep. There we are.
The challenge.
So what else have we got? So we've got the second year of the Aquascape competition. So it's quite small scale. We have 4 tanks, but that's a bit of fun. In terms of the 2 guest speakers, we've got Joe from Aquarium Composition who's made a comment on there that he's going to talk about automation, because quite often you have conversation I've seen on live streams, how much is you automating a tank, how do you do it, that kind of thing. So he's on hand both as a vendor in the hall but also going to talk about automation. And we also have the Horniman Museum. It's someone's coming, we don't know who's going to be there to really talk about the museum and what's been going on in the last couple of years. It's not Jamie, because Jamie's really moved on more to Mars and goes a lot around the world.
He hasn't gone to Mars.
Well,
you might want to explain.
You may sometimes think he's gone to Mars, but yeah, he works for Mars, and it is the chocolate bar people who is a massive Project Hope. Is it? I think I can't remember what part of the ocean it's
Seychelles, is it, or something like that?
So yeah, he's focusing more on that, and then you've got Hartley or Felicity. I think it might be one of those two guys who'll come along to talk about the museum. What's going on with latest in spawning, that kind of thing. So they've got a real mix from talking about automation to what's kind of going at the cutting edge, should we say, of spawning at the moment. So that should be so exciting. We've got the giveaway. So at the moment, we're just going around the vendors as to what could be given away. So that 100% of the takings from the kind of raffle giveaway goes to mine. So that helps top up the money. You've got the frag swap. So last year, I think there was 180 corals that were swapped or given away, which was a record, and it beat some larger shows as well over 2 days. So that's really,
lovely,
really
isn't it? The fact that people, everyone, it seems nowadays that a lot of people are driven by selling stuff, but that's one of the nicest things, the fact that people are literally swapping corals. And I've known people to bring something that's what they would term as, if there is such a term, fairly high-end corals, but quite happy to swap them for something that isn't necessarily that, it's not a monetary thing here. It's just people just swapping stuff.
And quite often people that haven't had SPS before, they'll get their first SPS, because there'll be people who are saying, well, I'm looking for SPS, and they'll be like a stylo or a piece of Monty, those kind of ones.
That leads into that question there from Johnny Wright.
Yes,
he must have stayed on rather than done his baby.
No, he did. He's been and come back.
Oh, is he? Okay.
Yeah, because I saw the thing coming back. He was back in 40 minutes, and he came
the lovely
back.
John Wright's asking, Than, he's a real gentleman, this fella. He says, asking, is the community as helpful in the US as it is here? From what I saw when I was there with the American Cichlid Society, a lovely, what was the lady that really helped you? Lovely, who helped you with your event. Seemed to be very much alive in America, the community. Is that right?
I think it just depends on the tribe you find, I guess. It can be very good, or it can be there's so many people here, and I think that sometimes certain clubs do better than others, and there's a little bit of cannibalization based on online communities like Facebook and whatnot that are dubiously helpful sometimes. So I think it's a mixed bag, and it also is what you make of it. So if you end up in a really good group, it is incredibly helpful. So it's certainly worth exploring.
Right, and there's something coming up. Any chance of the Crags Tournament museum corals? Well, I did actually. I might still even have some acros that actually came from Jamie's spawning via TMC. We might be able to sort something out for that. I'll have to ask. So by all means, reach out to us before Love2Reef, and I'll see what I can arrange. What's this on there? I have no idea about Hydros coming to the UK. There's been lots of promises about Hydros developing, and I've spoken to them when I've been abroad before. I've got friends that are using them now over there as well, but still very much a Neptune fan myself personally. I think I've invested too much into it. Will we see? I don't think the Mavens, to be honest with you, even made it to this Reefer Palooza that I've just been to. So that's been an ongoing discussion. Harry's got there. Yeah, Mars, Sheba are doing amazing things, most certainly, just by investing their funds alone into these projects. And Paul, and any further stuff on?
Yeah, I was just going to talk about some of the people. So we've got people for the first time. We've got Aquaforest there. Obviously, got Aquarium Composition. We've got Prestige,
no, not them.
Prestige Reef as well. There's some newbies there, and then we've got kind of some of the usual staple ones we have there. So like Exodus with the far range, we've got ATI and Neptune Aquatic now, which kind of Tunzi, and I'm a big fan of Tunzi. I know you are, Paul, because I'm biased when it comes to Tunzi because I've been using them. I think one of the first pumps I ever bought was a Tunzi pump, and the skimmer, the 9004 was
Brilliant.
the first skimmer I bought.
Yeah.
I just
Such a good little skimmer.
think they're workhorses. They
Yeah.
really are. I think the quality of them. I use J-Cod as well, but I think you can't beat Tunzi.
I
That's
love
my
it,
personal
yeah,
opinion
personally,
on that.
5-year warranty on a lot of this
Yeah,
stuff as well.
absolutely. So we've got 15 different vendors there, so that's really good. I think it's just a few thank yous because there's been some hobbyists that really helped. So when I first started, it is a real amount of work that goes into selling tickets and doing social media. And I have a love-hate relationship with social media, and most of the time I don't do social media other than YouTube. So obviously there's Matt, you've done a lot of work. There's been Murph's Reef, Yorkshire Reefer, Reef and Teeth, and also East Coast Reefers. So the 5 of those guys have really helped me.
Murph's been sharing it as well.
There's been a lot of posts done on Instagram and Facebook.
That's really, it's really made a difference,
It really has in terms of the ticket sales, because I don't do it very often. It takes a long time to do posts. I can't just put a banner up now. I have to do a bloody video. So it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. So the fact that these guys have done the videos and shared it, and I know certainly Laura and a lot of the vendors have as well, because now I think it's a bit like YouTube. It's so saturated to get cut through in any social media today, and you guys find that it's really difficult because it is so noisy out there. So the work we have to do to sell the tickets, and we're on track to sell out again, which I'm humbled by, really, that people come every year to this kind of little show, really.
Yeah.
And it's the only show in the UK as well. There's obviously meetings at LFSs and things like that, but as a standalone show, it's the only one in the UK that's planned at the moment, which is a shame because I love going to shows. But they're not cheap to put on.
No.
They take so much time to put on, so I don't blame people for not doing it.
Yeah,
because it is a real. I mean, it becomes 4 months of my life, so I think a third of my year.
Well, that's why
I don't
eventually,
do
that's why I passed it in so many words, the idea that you would carry on with it, because you're literally trying to run a business and trying to put on a show. It's a quite a tall order.
Yeah, but I would do it until I don't enjoy it.
Yeah,
and then after that, I'll be kind of beat up on that. But yeah, I think it's absolutely brilliant. Those people who come along love it. A lot of people love it as their event for the year. They get to meet people, and some people only meet at that event and don't meet to the next the next year. I think that's about it. So thank you for everyone who's bought a ticket, and also for everyone who's helped or post or shared and everything else. It's been
so
fantastic.
Just before we go, I just wanted to talk to Laura a little bit more about Eco Marines.
You don't have to, it's fine.
Yeah.
Why not?
Because I'm tired. I had power tools out today.
You had power tools. Well, that's all. Tell us about that then. Why did you have power? So first of all, those who are watching, Laura pretty much runs her operation single-handedly, don't you?
Do run it single-handedly.
You've tried staff, but they've never worked out, have they?
Well, no, I have had people over the years, but it's not the greatest job in the world, really.
No.
As Than was saying, like Than's bought like pizza makers and ice cream machines and things like that, and I'm not quite at the Tidal Gardens level, so people have to work late nights, and it's not great pay, and it's not the best job in the world. So yeah, I
think a lot of people joined, didn't they, our industry, believing it's going to be a walk in the park and they're going to be tickling corals all day long and feeding fish.
And we're all driving Ferraris.
That's it, yeah. And I think once they really get down into the nitty gritty of understanding what it takes to run an LFS or to run a business in aquatics with very low reward, at best, you might get a lifestyle out of it, but you're never gonna achieve what you might have achieved with a.
You need to have the burning passion to want to do this when it's a relative's birthday and you should really be there spending it with them, but you've had a pump or something go down, and that's got to be the priority.
And the hardest thing for you as well, isn't it, is and I know this firsthand as well. I mean, I'm lucky that I've got staff that will keep an eye on things for me while I'm away. But I know that for you, that's a real bind. Every time you go away, something happens, doesn't it? Or it's really difficult for you to actually have any of your own free spare time, isn't it?
Well, I have a lot of empathy for the people earlier saying that they'd had a power cut, because it seems every year, if I plan a holiday, I'll get a letter through saying, we're going to be cutting the trees in your area and we're going to switch off the power for the whole day. And it's like you get 2 weeks notice, but the holiday's been booked. I mean, I never go very far away because of this, but I can guarantee it doesn't matter what week I book, that's the week they're going to turn all the electric off. So
yeah, what like, so Eco Marines now, so I remember you obviously for, I don't know how long we've known each other, must be 20, 30 years or something like that, and you obviously
30, I'm not that old.
Don't know,
20, I'll give you 20.
Is it 20?
Yeah.
Must be more than 20.
Stick at 20, Paul. Stick at 20.
Well, if I've been here 17 years that, that my company's been going, and it's certainly 5 or 10 years. Well, it must be 20, 25 years, right? But ultimately, so you was a company, local company called Amwell Aquatics. That's where I first remember you from. Yeah, and you run their marine department and turned it into a very, very successful
Well, I didn't
operation.
turn it into anything. They didn't have one really when I started. They had like a little bay, and they took me on, and they were opening a marine centre. So I opened it when I first started there, but I was only actually there for 6 years before I thought, well, I want to do farming. I want to farm corals. So while I was there, I had got myself a unit, and I was growing things like xenia and stuff like that, and taking it into the shop to sell. So it's always been the plan to farm, but
I don't think many people appreciate something. I'll blow some smoke up of your bottom now, right? That you was the first person that I know to, although you advocate like I do about really understanding about why wild imports are really important. You also was the first person I know of in the UK to import captive bred mandarins.
yeah.
He was the first person to import captive bred coral beauties. First person to import captive bred flame angels. Everyone, not many people in the chat, I'm sure, will realise that once upon a time, Laura was in touch with a gentleman somewhere in the US, I believe.
Sid, he was in Hawaii,
in Hawaii.
He sadly died now.
Who sadly died. Was it of a brain problem, wasn't
cancer,
it? Yeah, but he basically, you brought in flame angels. What we could do with it, blimey, we could do with seeing them again, captive bred flame angels. But as I've said all along, at the time Laura first started doing this, of course, like no one would pay Laura the money.
The problem is I've got this foresight of what I worry about
it's
the
about
industry.
5 years too early.
And I'm always too early with everything. So I'm hoping with the farming, I'm going to be right on the nose if we ever need it. But I've always looked at where the industry's going. So I thought tank bred is going to be so important. But the problem is the industry wasn't quite ready, or the hobby wasn't quite ready for it. So a lot of the people that were doing amazing things like the mandarins and all the other bits, they're no longer here. They've sadly either died, the companies went under, or it just wasn't financially viable, and I couldn't get traction. Or I was trying to sell a $34.95 wild mandarin sat next to a $69.95 tank bred mandarin that was feeding on pellets, and it didn't matter what I said, I couldn't get people to understand. So unfortunately I couldn't get it off the ground. But now here we are, like,
I know.
15,
Amazing.
20 years
and
later.
I also remember that the amount of times, how many hobbyists out there today would love to hear the fact that you actually did try and offer stores, because obviously you're predominantly wholesale. I know we open this up to the public at Love2Reef, but obviously you sell and you use a retail front on the Charterhouse website, but generally you're wholesale, and you've always wanted to just remain wholesale to retail store. I know that's been your main drive, but you did offer some very well rested 4-week, 6-week rested fish. Like, I wouldn't have said that they were hugely inflated, but again, you just couldn't make it pay, could you? It was too early. People didn't appreciate it.
Yeah.
You know?
So what kind of fish would? Because actually,
everything.
I think there is a.
So
I would buy it
I had
at a premium that I know have been rested and everything.
Yeah,
It stays
you
meat
would,
quality.
but a lot of customers.
Yeah, I'm
wouldn't.
going to imagine a lot of people wouldn't. But
Yeah.
No, agreed.
it was a hard sell, and the problem was I was being, so I had one big fish system, and I didn't want to mix origins, so I'd get one shipment in from one area, keep it in for 4 weeks, put it through a quarantine procedure, then offer it out for sale after the 4 weeks. And everyone looked at the pricing and was like, no.
Yeah,
so what kind of premium in percentage terms? I know it
I
depends.
can remember, actually. I can remember some pricing. So, for example, because I was absolutely fine with it, but it was trying to educate people to understand that, yes, I know I've got an orange shoulder tang on the system for £69, and the one next to it is 169, but it wasn't as I said, it was basically there was one that would that generally people wanted things cheap. That was the problem.
Yeah.
So when Laura brought in those captive bred mandarins, I bought them. I bought the coral beauties and things, but people didn't want to pay £120 for a captive bred coral beauty. Not when there was one for £40 available. I think nowadays, people would appreciate what Laura tried to do or has tried to do throughout her career. But I think at the time, like I've always said, she was too early with it. You know, that was and I've said that, and to be honest, I've said that to you, haven't I, all the way along, and that, like she generally comes up with an idea. Yeah, and then ultimately it will be 5 years down the road and someone else is doing it, won't it?
So I work on the basis I don't actually buy that many fish. So I have a tank usually for 10 years. And once it's stopped after about 5 years, I probably don't add any more fish. So actually, if I look at the fish I've got, it's more important to get as safe as possible pest-free fish into that tank. So for me, and I don't know if I'm typical or not, but for me, that's the most important thing. So I would pay a premium, but I don't know if that's typical.
No.
Matt, what do you think? Would you pay a premium?
Yes, I think I would.
What that premium is, but you think about the fish. You've got all those fish there. The last thing you want to do is put a fish in there, and all of a sudden,
I'd rather buy a fish that's rested £50 more that I know is going to go in and not come up with velvet the next day. I would rather buy quality over quantity. I think especially there's maybe a market in them particular fish that you know could cause you issues. So like powder blues, copper bands, mandarins. If you can get them feeding on pellets, exactly. I think there is particular fish straight off the bat. I think there's definitely a market.
I suppose those finicky, people. I would never go near a copper band because the thought of getting it and then it's starving and dying, and I know it has a high propensity to do that. I wouldn't go there. If I knew one that was well rested and feeding well, there's no guarantees. I know that, but if you can mitigate some of that on those kind of fish,
more stuff like that, I just think.
I mean, I think it depends. Sometimes I think it depends on the relationship you build with your dealer. So, for example, if we see people regular and all of that, and they get tasked me with an order for argument's sake. So recently, I know there was. Someone will say, is there a chance? But of course, as Laura and will agree with me, the problem is that the hobbyists very often don't understand. It's not a Tesco's warehouse for us. So fish are seasonal for starters. Also, sometimes leaving a fish for extended periods of time in quarantine isn't good for them.
Remember you said
so
about
things like
yellowtail
tamarins, Matt. You've got to get them when they're fresh. If they're longer, I know. But I'm just using that as an example, that the longer they stay in a dealer's system, where there isn't enough fauna and flora for them to graze on, the worse condition they are. It's okay if you're buying tank bred mandarins, and feeding them on pellet, great, they'll sustain in a quarantine situation. But why would you quarantine it? Where do you draw the line with pistol, shrimp, goby pairs? What we do, separate them out for 4 weeks and put them together again. So for me, there's not one blanket form of QT, but certainly with Laura was doing her well-rested specimen approach, that's a one way of doing it, at least sitting and holding them. I think the difference is probably what we were saying earlier on with the US versus here is that generally most UK dealers will be sitting on their fish longer than probably the US will be. So we're either taking the losses more as dealers if I include us all as a whole, or whereas versus the US, which are literally there's an insatiable demand, and none of the energy costs associated with running a reef aquarium, so reef aquariums are growing exponentially in the US like that. Whereas we're at a moment where there's less of them. I think fish species have changed. One thing I know that Laura concentrated on was smaller species, gobies, blennies, and things like that, wasn't it, as a rule?
Yeah, but it's funny you say that because a lot of the fish I've got in my place now are fish that I couldn't sell quarantined. So I've got giant chevron tangs from before the Hawaii ban, and I've got fat pairs of mandarins that are like this size and like tanks, but like proper pairs. Because
but they're your pets, so you wouldn't sell them to me anyway.
If I could catch them.
And I was going to also say, Laura, just talk to you about something about obviously Laura, in case people don't know, she's been heavily involved in the overall industry for a very long time, working as a chairman for OATA, which I believe you just recently stepped down from. Is that right now?
Finished
Finally,
my time.
chairman.
I was just over 2. I was meant to do 2, and I did about 2.5 in the
Yeah.
end.
So,
I refuse to do anymore.
you know, certainly I've never been so scared lately with what we're seeing here with a pet ban. Have you seen this, Than, circulating in the UK at the moment on the social media? There's basically what's something called
Fans welcoming it.
a positive list. A positive list is where they ban everything. And then that means everything. That means it doesn't matter whether it's aquacultured or anything, Than. You wouldn't be allowed to sell something that you'd even bred, not even your urchins anymore, because until there was a study carried out on the reef, yeah, they wouldn't. So basically, what they do is they basically ban everything, and then slowly, as they feel, bring things back into the hobby. So that means, Matt, that all your animals would be illegal that you own in that tank there. Completely illegal. That means you would be no internal trade, by the way. You get nicked for that. So this is how serious we're talking. Yeah, and where do you think this legislation's grown? Because I've been really, really upset lately, actually.
I really don't know. And again, this is like part of the foresight I see for the industry. Honestly, I feel like it's terrifying that our industry can just be taken away from us just like that. And yeah, this is why I joined OATA, because I was panicking. And I thought, rather than sit here and panic and not do anything about it, if I can join a body that's trying to actively fight against it and volunteer my time, then that's what I'll do. Because at least if I've tried and I failed, at least I tried. What's going to happen, I really don't know. There's great people. The OATA guys are such a small but mighty team. They do such great work with relatively small funding. And they've taken on some really well-funded, massive beasts. So we're trying. What's going to happen? I really don't know.
Man, there is problems in the US, isn't there? When I was over at Reeferpalooza 2024, I think it was, there was a time when we arrived that there was actually something going forward in the US regarding, in Florida, actually, state by state, banning all exotic species. Is that right? Did you do something?
I don't recall exactly, but there was something similar where they were trying to put forward like a whitelist sort of thing, very similar to what you're describing.
Yeah. I mean, as I said, I think it would really seriously, I don't think it matters whether you're aquaculturing, tank breeding, whatever. I think that anything around this. And as I think what's really sad at the moment is scientific fact. Everything used to be sort of looked at in an intelligent manner, and nowadays everything seems to be looked at in an emotional manner. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and also I've had to deal with various government agencies quite closely over the years, and when you factor in how government works, it's incredibly slow, and when they act, they're very black and white. There's not much room there for grey. So, for example, the whole banning scullies for the whole of Australia, when really it probably didn't need to happen, but it had to happen because the original rules couldn't be enforced, then the entire trade suffers and loses one species. That's how government works. We can, have conversations and try and mitigate that kind of thing, but it's
and how do you think at the moment? I see Matt Bond's working with Matt Bond is, if anyone's in the chat, you might remember from last year's Love2Reef.
Yeah,
he done a fantastic talk on a lot of these things alongside the reptile industry at the moment.
Yeah,
and trying to get more public awareness. And I think anyone who's in the chat, and maybe something after Love2Reef, Matt, with what your wonderful posts and all your, one of the reasons why I really wanted you in tonight is how much effort you've put into making people aware of Love2Reef. I think this positive list thing is something that we really, really, really need to focus on, because positive now means negative. Yeah. So I think that's something that we really need to focus on. Where do you think there's any light at the end of the tunnel, Laura? Is there, or do we prepare ourselves ultimately for the worst?
There's a reason I've just invested a lot of money in a farm.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't tell you. I really hope that, sanity wins through and it isn't just based on emotion. And of course, like I said, with there's active arguments going on to protect the industry from that. But I really don't know. We have things taken away so quickly from us in the trade.
It's really odd to me at the moment because there's so many other things going on in the world. You'd think that people would be focusing on those rather than something like our tiny little aquatic trade.
It's very emotive though, isn't it? Yeah. We're ripping things out of the ocean and we're doing all these terrible things. But when you actually compare like quantities that we're bringing out, the sustainability behind the industry, it doesn't compare. Well, I think it makes a great story.
I'm left with that wonderful comment that Jamie Craggs said, and if Jamie Craggs can say this, then that's good enough for me. And that is that our aquatic trade, our removal of coral overall is minuscule, minuscule. You know, so you know it's you think that there's a few boats operate in an area the size of Texas in Australia collecting coral. It's very, very odd to me. But
the bit for me is when Jamie and others talked about how they care for the reef. So they treat it like a farm, don't they? It's sustainable. And if they wasn't doing it, they'd be blowing it up for something else.
People have got to live.
So they've got to live. So therefore, they're protecting it because they earn more from a fish for ornamental than they do even if it's for food.
Absolutely.
So actually, you take that away, there's more chance of the reefs being destroyed than actually protecting.
That was very evident in the Philippines. In the Philippines, when no one wanted to buy Philippine fish anymore because of the cyanide issue, and it took, I believe, something called the Marine Aquarium Council to try and justify the Philippine fish industry when it really started to clean its act up. But if you remove a livelihood from hand net catching marine ornamentals, you're basically literally giving them a license to start reverting back to dynamite fishing.
Yeah.
So you know,
taking more out.
You've got to keep these, and that's why I was saying earlier on we touched on the subject of biopiracy, that sort of thing, because I think in so many words you want to teach the local people to do aquaculture and export as much as we want to do it ourselves. I think that's an important thing as well.
Yeah, of course.
It's a balance, isn't it?
Right, should we go back to the final bits on there? I think there's we've got Woody there. It's a fantastic, I think, referring to Love2Reef. I think Joe mentioning about joining the trade on there, if only they knew. I know what he means. Powers Underground on there. March coming to Love2Reef. Well, he really, really does want to come to Love2Reef, in all honesty, but he's just had his little frag, his little baby, and I spent some time with at Reeferpalooza, and he's very much a dad. I think he's just made it over to Nuremberg.
I saw him in the picture with Connor.
But he's, as I said, he's apart from his wife and child at this time, and I'm not sure he's going to make it this time. But there is talk of another Canadian, possibly, or pair of Canadians making it, but we'll have to see.
Oh, okay.
Joe's had a call out, so he's got up there. In Italy, you can't buy. Yeah, it was Italy where I first heard about the positive list, and I believe on day one, Matt, just to give you an idea of what a positive list can look like, when it literally overnight changed, exotics overnight, and you was allowed to have, because apparently they've done a study on Caribbean blue tangs, so you could have a Caribbean blue tang and a locally tank bred clownfish. So that's all you was allowed to have for your marine aquarium. How about that? That would be wonderful, wouldn't it? Two species were legal, none of the others were. However, in true Italian style, I believe, they just can't use the words, effed it off, more or less, straight away. So luckily for them, I don't believe anyone is conforming to the Italian rules whatsoever, are they?
I have no idea.
And I think there's even more illegality going on now as a result of that, even that. And that's the problem, of course. The more things we make illegal or ban, then we drive it underground, we create even more of a black market, and we end up in an even worse situation.
I don't even understand who even starts to think that's a good idea, though.
Sharon government.
It's pressure. So basically, what you do is, so I believe it was Boris Johnson's wife.
She was part of it at one point.
Boris Johnson's wife at one stage was very much, she was part of this little group that believed that all exotic reptiles and exotic animals should go to this particular centre or zoo type place, and then they were going to rewild them, put them back.
What?
I know. So imagine a guppy, because currently a guppy is actually an exotic animal. If we get this positive ban come in, goldfish, koi carp, guppies, everything that you'd imagine would be like, guppies haven't seen their natural habitat for about 60 years, as Dan was saying earlier on, true guppies. Yeah, Trinidad. So you can imagine putting an exotic guppy back in Trinidad, couldn't you? We'd get eaten in about 3 seconds. But so that was a good one there from John. And then finally from Harry, great talk from Matt Bond, very special man. Now Matt Bonds took over from Dominic at Oata. I think he's a really good asset to Oata, certainly, and really full of passion.
Very engaging.
Is he coming to Love2Reef?
No, I don't.
Yeah, it'd be nice to invite him along, don't you think, Paul?
Yeah.
I think he'd. Anyway, I think we're at the end. Are we, Paul? Is there anything else you want to add?
No, just thank you, really.
No, thank you very much, Than, for coming along. I know this isn't
Thanks for having me.
Sort of thing that you normally do. Laura, it's great to have you with us again, and Matt as well. Just say,
come on, book tickets, guys.
Well, anyway, Matt, thank you so much for getting all that awareness out into the community. And with all your adverts, I'm sure Paul feels wholeheartedly.
No, absolutely. It's all the guys that have helped. Yeah, absolutely.
All about the community. That's the least I can do.
Thank you.
Right. Well, thank you very much, everyone. Bye from AAC. All right.
Bye, guys.
See ya.